We're now going to take a look at solving trig equations. So here's a typical sort of one. Tan theta equals negative 2.3673. But what we'll find with trig equations is that they'll specify what range they want the answer between. So in this case, 0 and 360. Because no longer can we just say it's a right angle triangle. So the first thing we always do is work out which quadrants are we in. Well, tan's negative, so therefore, second and the fourth quadrant. Next step is to work out, well, what's the equivalent acute angle? So for that, we make the ratio positive, and solving our one, we get 67 degrees, 6 minutes. Then we put it together and solve the problem. In the second quadrant, and I'll just draw a little diagram here and put in the right angle triangles. So there's my second quadrant and my fourth quadrant right angle triangles with the acute angle drawn in. So in the second quadrant, we have 180 minus alpha, and in the fourth quadrant, 360 minus alpha. So subbing in what we found for alpha and doing our calculation, we have our two possible answers for theta, 112.54 and 292.54. All right, let's do another one. So cos theta is a half. Once again, we're going between 0 and 360. Cos is positive, so therefore, first and fourth quadrant. Draw myself a little diagram there. All right, so I can see that the acute angle would be 60 degrees. Now, the first quadrant, it's just the acute angle, but in the fourth quadrant, 360 minus the acute angle, sub it in our 60 degrees, and again, we get two answers, 60 degrees and 300 degrees. Well, if we get something like cosec, well, I don't have a cosec button on my calculator, so the first thing I'm going to do is turn both sides upside down. So sine theta is equal to a quarter. So sine is positive in the first and the second quadrant. The acute angle, approximately 14 degrees 29. So in the first quadrant, it is the acute angle. In the second quadrant, 180 minus, and we work out our answers, 14 degrees 29, 165.31. So it's the same steps every single time. With this sort of trig equation, it's still an equation. The difference here with the trig equation is rather than making x the subject, we make the trig function the subject. So I want to make sine x the subject. And so I get sine x is negative a half. Sine is negative, third and the fourth quadrant. The acute angle would be 30 degrees. So in the third quadrant, 180 plus the acute angle. Fourth quadrant, 360 minus the acute angle. And we end up with 210 and 330. Oh, with this one, I've got both sine and cos. Well, I can rearrange this because remember our ratio, sine over cos is the same as tan theta. So I can rewrite this one to be tan theta is negative 2/5. Tan's negative, second and the fourth quadrant. The acute angle, 21.48. In the second quadrant, 180 minus the acute angle. Fourth quadrant, 360 minus the acute angle. Subbing in, 158.12. 338.12. Cos 2 theta. Now, we can't factorise out the two like we do with, say, algebra. We have to find cos 2 theta first. Well, we're looking for theta between 0 and 360. So in order to solve this problem, I want to find answers for 2 theta that are between 0 and 720. So I'm going to go around the circle twice. Cosine is positive, so I'm in the first and the fourth quadrant. Acute angle, 41 degree 25. So 2 theta, well, first quadrant is the acute angle. Fourth quadrant, 360 minus the acute angle. Subbing in, of course, that only gives us answers between 0 and 360. To get the other ones, add 360 degrees to both answers. So in other words, we're going around the circle again. And we end up with 4 possibilities for 2 theta. So now to find our answers for theta, divide everything by 2, and all of those answers are between 0 and 360. So the key is you have to find 2 theta before you can find theta. Ooh, sec squared plus tan is equal to 3. Well, here I'm going to make use of our trig identity because I want all the ratios to be the same here. So the sec squared, I'll change to 1 plus tan squared, and I end up with a quadratic equation. But this time, instead of having an x or a y, the pronumeral is tan theta. Multiplies together to give negative 2, adds together to give 1. There's 2 and negative 1. So we have 2 possible equations to solve. Either tan theta is -2 or tan theta is 1. So let's do the tan theta equals -2 first of all. Negative, so we're in the second or the fourth quadrant. The acute angle, 63.26. So a 180 minus the acute, or 360 minus the acute, giving us 116.34, 296.34. Now let's do the other one. Tan theta is equal to 1, first or third quadrant. The acute angle is 45 degrees this time. So it's either the acute angle or 180 plus. Subbing in, another two answers. But I don't leave it like that. Let's combine it all into one neat final answer. So there we go. We get all four written down. It makes sense to put them in numerical order. So 45 degrees, 116.34, 225 degrees, and 296.34. All right. So a few questions there to do on trig equations.